Science has solved problems that looked impossible. We split the atom. We landed humans on the moon. We photographed a black hole 55 million light years away. And yet, there is a list of things happening inside and around you right now that science cannot explain. Not things science has not gotten around to yet. Things it has been working on for decades, in some cases centuries, and still cannot resolve. Here are 10 of them. Number 10. You have probably already yawned today. You may yawn again before this entry is over. The frustrating part is that neither you nor the scientists who study you can explain why. The obvious theory, that yawning draws in extra oxygen when the body runs low, was directly tested. Researchers at the University of Maryland varied the oxygen and carbon dioxide levels in subjects breathing air and tracked what happened to yawning rates. Nothing happened. The oxygen theory was simply wrong. Scientists went looking for a replacement and found several competing ones instead. The current frontrunner proposes that yawning cools the brain, functioning like a small internal fan. Researchers at Princeton found that people yawn more in cooler environments, which partially supports this. But yawning also increases during warm afternoons, which directly contradicts it. The mechanism by which opening your jaw would cool a brain insulated inside a skull has not been resolved. Then there is the contagion problem. Yawning is transmissible across species. Chimpanzees catch yawns from humans. Dogs catch yawns from humans. Budgerigars, small parrots, have been documented catching yawns as well. Blind individuals catch yawns from audio recordings alone. Researchers at the University of Nottingham found that higher empathy scores correlate with significantly greater susceptibility to contagious yawning. That is an interesting finding. It does not explain the yawn. Science mapped the human genome. The yawning question is still open. Number 9. You spend approximately 2 hours dreaming every single night. Over a lifetime that accumulates to roughly 6 years inside a state that science cannot fully account for. Researchers can tell you which neurons fire during dreaming. They can identify the precise sleep stage where the most vivid dreams occur. They can watch the dreaming brain in real time. What they cannot tell you is why any of it happens. 3 dominant theories for why humans dream exist in the current literature. They substantially contradict one another. One argues dreams consolidate memory. A second argues they function as emotional regulation, overnight processing of unresolved feeling. A third argues they simulate social threats, running low-stakes rehearsals of conflict so the waking self is better prepared. These are not minor variations of the same idea. They are meaningfully different proposals pointing toward different evolutionary functions. You have spent roughly 6 years of your life in this state. Science cannot agree on why that state exists. Number 8. The common understanding of why cats purr is that it signals contentment. That version is incomplete in a way that makes it significantly more interesting. Cats also purr when injured. They purr during labor. They purr under acute stress, and, in documented cases, in the final hours before death. Purring is not an emotional readout. Researchers believe it is a self-regulatory mechanism, but what it is actually regulating leads somewhere unexpected. A domestic cat's purr falls between 25 and 50 hertz. That specific frequency range has been studied in an entirely separate context. Bone repair. Controlled exposure to 25 to 50 hertz vibrations measurably increases bone density and accelerates fracture healing in laboratory conditions. Orthopedic researchers have investigated whether this range could be applied therapeutically to humans recovering from fractures. Cats are high-impact animals. They fall from significant heights. They land badly. Their rate of serious bone fractures is nonetheless statistically low relative to animals of comparable size and activity. Some researchers have proposed that purring is a self-generated healing mechanism, the cat vibrating its own skeleton toward recovery during rest. The evidence is suggestive, not confirmed. The neural pathway that produces the purr has not been fully mapped. Hundreds of millions of households contain one of these animals. Science does not yet have a complete account of what it is doing. Number 7. You step into a room you have never entered, or begin a conversation you have never had, and a certainty arrives. You have been here before, you have not. The brain is misfiling a present moment as a memory, and the full explanation does not currently exist. The leading theory holds that a new experience is accidentally routed through the brain's familiarity systems before it has been fully registered as new. The recognition signal fires before the moment has finished arriving. You feel the memory before the experience has been officially classified as current. Researchers at the University of Leeds produce deja vu on demand by electrically stimulating the rhinal cortex, the region responsible for familiarity signaling. They could trigger the sensation reliably. What they could not produce was an explanation for why the spontaneous version occurs without electrical prompting. Approximately 97% of people have experienced deja vu. It is among the most common neurological events a person can have. Science can locate the region, reproduce the effect, and observe the neurons involved. Why the present occasionally arrives already labeled as the past remains unresolved. Number 6. Ball lightning sounds like the kind of phenomenon that should have been quietly discredited by now. It has not been. The phenomenon involves a luminous sphere of light appearing during or after electrical storms. It ranges from the size of a golf ball to several feet across. Reported behavior includes drifting slowly through closed rooms, passing through glass windows without damage, and disappearing silently. These reports come from military pilots, naval officers, meteorologists, and physicists across every inhabited continent, spanning at least 3 centuries from populations with no contact with one another. The consistency across independent accounts is significant. Physicists have formally proposed over a dozen distinct mechanisms since ball lightning was first documented in the 1830s. Laboratory attempts to replicate it using microwave energy and plasma chambers have produced things that partially resemble it for fractions of a second. None have passed through a window. In 2012, a Chinese research team accidentally recorded what appeared to be a natural ball lightning event on spectrographic equipment. The event lasted less than 2 seconds. It remains the most credible direct instrumental data science has collected on a phenomenon reported thousands of times. Current theories involve plasma, trapped microwave radiation, and quantum effects in nitrogen. They do not converge. Number 5. The standard understanding of the placebo effect is that it requires belief. You think the treatment is real, so your body responds as though it is. That understanding is missing something important. In 2010, a team at Harvard Medical School ran a trial on irritable bowel syndrome patients in which every participant was told exactly what they were receiving. Open-label placebos. The researchers said explicitly, "This is a sugar pill. It contains no active ingredient. Studies suggest it may still help." Those patients were then tracked against a group receiving no treatment. The placebo group improved significantly. Knowing the pill was fake did not stop the effect. When the brain registers that treatment is occurring, it releases actual opioids. Actual dopamine. Measurable changes appear in pain perception, inflammation levels, and immune response, generated by something chemically inert. This is not optimism. This is your body producing genuine pharmacology in response to nothing. The effect is strong enough that every pharmaceutical drug must outperform it in clinical trials before reaching a pharmacy shelf. Some drugs fail that test. Science documents the placebo with precision. Why the brain produces a real chemical response to a fake treatment remains an open question. Number 4. Every organism that has ever lived on Earth, every bacterium, every tree, every animal, traces back to a single moment when chemistry became biology. That moment is called abiogenesis. Science cannot explain it. In 1953, Stanley Miller and Harold Urey simulated early Earth conditions in a flask. Water, methane, ammonia, hydrogen, and introduced electrical sparks to mimic lightning. Within a week, the flask contained amino acids, the molecular building blocks of proteins. The world interpreted this as a near solution. It was not. Amino acids are ingredients. The distance between a collection of amino acids and a self-replicating living cell is roughly the distance between a pile of aircraft components and a functioning aircraft in flight. No one has crossed that gap in a laboratory. The leading frameworks: RNA world, hydrothermal vent chemistry, mineral surface catalysis, each account for part of the sequence and run into walls at different points. No complete mechanism exists for how non-living chemistry produced the first living thing. The origin of every organism that has ever existed, including you, remains scientifically unresolved. Number 3. The matter you are familiar with. Stars, planets, atoms, every physical thing science has cataloged, accounts for approximately 5% of everything that exists. The remaining 95% is dark matter and dark energy. Neither has ever been directly detected. Scientists name them dark, not for poetry, but for precision. These things emit no light, reflect no light, and register on no instrument ever built. Their existence is inferred entirely from how visible matter behaves. Galaxies rotate at speeds that should structurally destroy them, given their observable mass. They do not get destroyed. Something with substantial mass is holding them together. That same invisible mass bends light from distant stars around entire galaxy clusters, an effect called gravitational lensing, confirmed repeatedly across independent observations. What that mass actually consists of remains unknown. Dark matter and dark energy are not working names for things science expects to identify soon. They are labels attached to a gap the current toolkit cannot close. Everything ever seen, measured, or physically encountered by any human being is 5% of what exists. Number 2. Time moves forward. That much is obvious. What is less obvious is that physics cannot explain why. Einstein's equations describing time are among the most precisely verified tools in science. They also work equally well in both directions. Run them forward, you get the observable universe. Run them backward, the mathematics remains fully valid. Nothing in the fundamental equations requires time to have a direction. Every particle interaction, every collision, every energy transfer is theoretically reversible. Time, in practice, refuses to reverse. The standard explanation involves entropy. The universe moves from ordered states toward disordered ones, and that tendency gives time its directionality. Entropy explains the appearance of a forward arrow. It does not explain why time cannot run backward at the level of fundamental physics, or why the past is inaccessible in a way the future is not. Scientists can measure time intervals to precision far beyond human perception. What they do not have is a settled answer for what time actually is, why it moves, or why it only moves one way. Number 1. Nobody knows what consciousness is. That sentence is more precise than it sounds. The difficulty is not that consciousness is complicated, though it is. The difficulty is that the instrument science would use to study it is made of the same thing being investigated. The brain is attempting to examine itself. The problem was formally named the hard problem of consciousness by philosopher David Chalmers in 1995. Its core is simple. Why does experience feel like anything at all? Neuroscience can identify with considerable precision which neurons fire when you perceive the color red. What it cannot explain is why red looks like something rather than nothing. Why any of this generates a subjective sense of being present and aware, rather than simply processing information in the dark. Researchers can describe the neural correlates of consciousness in measurable detail. Every year that work becomes more precise. What it cannot produce is an account of why those correlates generate the sensation of being a person living through a life. The thing you are most certain of, that you exist, that you are aware, that something is happening right now. is the thing science is still working to explain.